Imagine dedicating your entire life to acquiring knowledge and performing all these good deeds, only to discover that you've been focusing on the lower truth the entire time.
Yeah, that is a tough pill to swallow.
Right. I mean, you've memorized the scriptures, you've mastered the sciences, you've given to charity, and you've, played the societal game flawlessly.
It did everything you were supposed to do.
Exactly. Yet, underneath all that accomplishment, there is this nagging, undeniable realization that you are basically staring at the finger pointing at the moon rather than the moon itself.
Which is a profound realization.
It really is. And that is the radical, world-tilting distinction made in the ancient text we are exploring today. We are looking at the Mundaka Upanishad.
It is such an incredible text.
It really draws a hard line in the sand between mere worldly learning and the profound experiential realization of the imperishable reality, which is known as Brahman.
Yes, it absolutely does.
So, welcome to the deep dive, right here on the Simplified Awakening channel. Before we jump in, please take a quick second to subscribe, like this deep dive, and share your reflections in the comments below as we go along today.
It is so great to be here. And just to set our coordinates for everyone listening, the Mundaka Upanishad is this foundational philosophical text from ancient India.
Right, and it's structured in a specific way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is traditionally divided into 3 sections, which are called mundakas. But today, we are specifically looking at this text through the profound lens of the great philosopher Shankaracharya.
Okay, let's unpack this, because framing it through Shankaracharya's commentary, that makes this deep dive much more than just a historical overview of ancient Indian literature.
Oh, absolutely. It elevates it entirely.
It becomes almost like a psychological masterclass. We're talking about a thinker who, consolidated the Advaita Vedanta, or the non-dual tradition. Right?
Precisely. Shankaracharya is really the great systematizer of non-dual thought. And his central thesis, when he's commenting on this Upanishad, is just uncompromising.
Well, compromising in what way?
Well, he argues that only Vidya, which is the direct, unmediated knowledge of Brahman, actually leads to true liberation.
Okay, so just that direct knowledge.
Yeah, and he insists that absolutely everything else, including, intense religious rituals, charitable acts, and the rote memorization of sacred scriptures, offers only temporary rewards.
Wow. So everything else is just temporary.
Right. He essentially shifts the entire spiritual paradigm from external observance to this very intense internal psychological awakening.
I have to admit, that sounds a bit subversive. I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around the idea that doing good deeds and studying sacred texts is somehow missing the point.
It definitely shocks the system when you first hear it.
Like, if my entire life, my job, my family, my ethical framework is just categorized as lower knowledge, doesn't that make life completely meaningless? Like, why even try to be a good person,
Yeah, and that is the exact tension this text is designed to address right out of the gate.
Okay, so how does it address it?
Well, it doesn't say lower knowledge is meaningless or bad. That's a common misconception. It just says it is structurally incapable of providing permanent peace.
Structurally incapable. I like that phrasing.
Thanks. And the Upanishad actually introduces this tension through a really brilliant narrative frame. We are introduced to a famous, very wealthy householder named Shanaka.
Right, and we should clarify for anyone who might not be familiar with the tradition, Shanaka being a householder is highly significant here.
It is crucial context.
He is not some forest-dwelling monk who has renounced everything. He is a man of the world. He has wealth, responsibilities, probably a massive estate to manage.
He's the ancient equivalent of a very successful CEO.
Exactly. He's won the game of samsara. He has achieved everything society tells you to achieve to be happy.
Exactly. And yet, despite all of that success, he is fundamentally unfulfilled. He recognizes this void.
Which so many people can relate to today, honestly.
They really can.
Yeah.
So Shanaka approaches the great sage Angiras. And Shanaka doesn't ask for more wealth or better health or better crops for his estate.
What does he ask?
He asks, what is perhaps the most profound question in all of philosophy? He says, "Holy Sir, what is that by which all else is known?"
Man, that is heavy. That is a massive question.
It really is.
He's essentially asking for the unified field theory of reality, right? Like, is there one root truth that, if I understand it, just unlocks the nature of absolutely everything?
Yes. That is exactly what he's looking for. And I want to tell you, if you're listening right now, really pay attention to how Anjaras answers this, because it fundamentally redefines what it means to be educated.
Oh, I love that. Redefining education.
Yeah, because Anjaras doesn't just hand Shaunaka a secret scroll with the answer. He establishes a dichotomy. He tells Shaunaka that there are two kinds of knowledge.
And if you've ever felt completely burnt out by just trying to hoard information or do the right thing all the time, this next part is really going to hit close to home.
It definitely will. So Anjaras introduces these two concepts. There is Apara Vidya, which is lower knowledge, and Para Vidya, which is the higher knowledge.
So let's break that down. What exactly falls into the lower bucket? Because when I read the text preparing for this, the list was staggering.
It is a very comprehensive list.
Yeah, and Duras explicitly states that Apara Vidya includes the four Vedas, the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. And it also includes phonetics, ceremonials, grammar, etymology, meter, and astronomy.
Basically, he lists the entirety of the accepted academic and religious curriculum of the ancient world.
Wait. I really need to push back here because this is wild. The Vedas are the most revered sacred texts in this entire spiritual tradition.
Yes, they are the absolute pinnacle of the tradition.
They are the ultimate authority. And Anjaras, with Shankaracharya backing him up, obviously, is looking a successful householder in the eye and categorizing the holiest scriptures as lower knowledge.
That is exactly what he is doing.
That must have sounded like absolute heresy to anyone listening back then.
Oh, without a doubt. What's fascinating here is how Shankaracharya anticipates that exact shock in his commentary.
How does he explain it then?
Well, he points out a glaring structural paradox in human language itself. The Upanishads themselves, the Vedas, all the texts, they're all made of words.
Right.
And words are symbols, they are conceptual pointers, and concepts technically fall under the umbrella of lower knowledge because they inherently rely on duality.
Duality, meaning like a subject studying an object.
Precisely. If you are reading a text, there is you, the reader, the subject, and there is the text, the object being read.
Okay, I follow that.
As long as that separation, that duality exists, you are in the realm of Apara Vidya. You can memorize the entire text of the Upanishad.
Yeah.
You can recite it with perfect Sanskrit meter. You can master the etymology and logically debate it until you are blue in the face. But that is just data processing.
It's just an assemblage of words in your brain.
Exactly. Shankaracharya argues that the words are a map, but confusing the map for the actual territory is a form of spiritual ignorance.
This reminds me of an analogy I use when people ask about the difference between knowing about something and actually knowing it.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
It's like reading a Wikipedia article about swimming. You can read about the physics of buoyancy, the fluid dynamics of water resistance, the biomechanics of the freestyle stroke, and the entire history of Olympic swimming.
You could be an absolute expert on the topic.
Right. You can memorize all of it and pass a written test with a flawless score. And that is Apara Vidya. It's structural, conceptual knowledge.
That is a perfect parallel.
But, until you actually walk to the edge of the pool and jump in, until you feel the shock of the cold water hit your skin, until the water goes up your nose, until you physically feel your center of gravity shift and you learn how to float, you don't actually know how to swim.
Exactly.
The direct, unmediated physiological experience of the water, that is the Paravidya. The intellectual separation completely vanishes the second you hit the water.
I love that analogy because it highlights exactly why Shankaracharya insists on direct experience. When you are in the water, trying to stay afloat, you aren't thinking about the chemical composition of H2O.
No, you're just trying not to drown.
Right. You're experiencing the water directly. Shankaracharya says that the changeless reality, the imperishable Brahman, is known not by looking at it, but by merging with it.
So reading about it isn't enough.
Not at all. As long as you rely solely on lower knowledge, you are just standing by the side of the pool holding a textbook, arguing with people about how wet the water is.
That is such a vivid way to put it. And, think about the modern implications of this for you and me. We are living in the most hyper-connected, data-saturated era in human history.
Oh, absolutely. The amount of information we consume daily is staggering.
We literally have the sum total of human knowledge in our pockets. We have infinite Apara Vidya at our fingertips.
Infinite lower knowledge.
Yeah. And if lower knowledge was the key to human happiness, we should be the most liberated, peaceful, enlightened society to ever exist.
We should be living in a utopia.
But we aren't. We are arguably more anxious, more fragmented, and more stressed out than ever before.
Because information is not wisdom.
Wow.
Lower knowledge organizes the material world. It is incredibly useful. It tells you how to build a bridge, how to code software, or how to perform a religious ritual. But it does not tell you who or what is experiencing the world.
It doesn't answer Shaunaka's fundamental question.
Exactly. It leaves the core of our existence completely unexamined.
Okay, so if gathering information and reading all the texts isn't enough, what about action?
What do you mean?
Well, what about the people who say, I don't care about philosophy, I just want to be a good person, do my duties, go to my place of worship, and give to charity? Because the Upanishad has a major critique of that approach too, doesn't it?
It does, and this is where Shankaracharya's commentary gets incredibly sharp.
Hmm.
Because he targets what we might call spiritual materialism.
Spiritual materialism, that's a great term.
Yeah, it's the idea that if I just perform the correct religious rituals or do enough good deeds, I can essentially earn my way to eternal peace.
The source text really goes hard on this. I mean, it says, considering religion to be observance of rituals and performance of acts of charity, the deluded remain ignorant of the highest good. Having enjoyed in heaven the reward of their good works, they enter again into the world of mortals.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at how Advaita Vedanta understands the mechanics of karma.
Because it's not the Western idea of karma, right?
Right, we often think of karma in a very simplistic, almost punitive way in modern pop culture, like cosmic payback. But at its core, karma is just the law of cause and effect. Every action produces a corresponding reaction.
Okay, yeah. Like if you plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. You don't mysteriously get an orange tree.
Exactly, it's just nature. So when a person performs highly meritorious acts, like massive charity, deep religious observance, spending their lives helping others, they generate massive amounts of positive good karma.
Which sounds like a great thing.
It is a good thing. And according to the cosmology of the time, that good karma will yield a phenomenal result. It might buy a person a temporary vacation in a highly elevated, very pleasant state of existence.
A heavenly realm.
Yes, a literal heavenly realm.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because in a lot of the world's religious traditions, getting to heaven is the ultimate finish line.
Right, it's the ultimate goal.
It's the end of the movie, the credits roll, you won, congratulations, you're in heaven forever. But this text completely subverts that expectation. It basically looks at heaven and says, yeah, that's just a really nice waiting room.
Because heaven, in this specific philosophical context, is still a state generated by cause and effect. It is a created state.
And what's wrong with a created state?
Well, Shankaracharya applies a very strict, undeniable, logical principle here. He says anything that is created in time must eventually dissolve in time.
Oh, wow. Anything that has a beginning must have an end.
Yes. The law of entropy applies even to spiritual rewards. If your action is finite, the result of that action must also be finite.
That makes mathematical sense.
Right. It is logically impossible for a finite action like giving away a percentage of your wealth or chanting a mantra for 10 hours to produce an infinite eternal result.
You can't buy infinity with finite currency.
Exactly. You earn a finite amount of merit, and that merit gets spent.
It's totally like earning airline miles.
Oh, and I like that. How so?
Well, if I grind away at a stressful corporate job,
Yeah.
right, and I put absolutely everything on my credit card, I might eventually earn enough miles for a first-class ticket to a private tropical island.
A literal paradise.
Yeah. And for 2 weeks, I'm in heaven. I'm drinking out of coconuts. I have zero stress. The weather is absolutely perfect. But, eventually the miles run out. The vacation has to end.
And then what happens?
Well, I am shuttled right back to the fluorescent lights of my cubicle to start grinding all over again.
That is precisely how Shankaracharya describes the trap of relying on heaven karma. You enjoy the heavenly realm until the karmic bank account is exhausted, and then you are pulled right back into the mortal world.
Back to the grind.
You are back on the wheel of samsara. You haven't actually solved the fundamental problem of suffering. You've just medicated it with a temporary, albeit very pleasant high.
So just being a good person doing good deeds isn't the finish line?
No, because it is still deeply rooted in desire and ego.
How is doing good rooted in ego?
As long as you are acting out of a desire for a reward, even if that reward is a beautiful heavenly afterlife, you are tethered to the material universe. You are essentially saying, I, the separate ego, am performing this action so that I, the separate ego, can enjoy that reward later.
Oh, I see. The I is still running the show.
Exactly. The ego is still completely intact. True liberation, the Vidya we talked about, requires renouncing the desire for the fruits of action entirely. It's about turning inward and realizing the self.
Okay, I really want to pivot here because all of this brings up a massive looming question.
I think I know where you're going with this.
If studying all the sciences and scriptures isn't it, and doing all the good deeds for a reward isn't it, what exactly is this higher reality we are supposed to be realizing?
It's the ultimate question.
Like, what is this imperishable Brahman? Because if it's not a creator god sitting on a throne judging my karma and handing out heaven tickets, what is it?
So the Upanishad relies on vivid metaphors to explain this, mostly because Brahman is totally beyond conceptual language.
Right, because language is lower knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can't define it directly without turning it into an object of lower knowledge. So the text uses these beautiful analogies to point the mind toward the truth.
And the first major metaphor in the source text is just fascinating.
It's a classic.
It says, as the web comes out of the spider and is withdrawn, as plants grow from the soil and hair from the body of man, so springs the universe from the eternal Brahman.
Let's really dissect the spider metaphor, because it fundamentally alters how we view the universe.
It's very different from the Western view.
Yeah, in a lot of Western thought, we operate on a model of creation called ex nihilo, which means creation out of nothing. We imagine a creator who exists completely separate from the universe.
Like a guy in the sky.
Right, who gathers materials or speaks words and builds the universe, kind of like a carpenter building a wooden house.
Yeah, and the carpenter obviously isn't made of wood. The carpenter is completely separate from the house. If the house burns down, the carpenter is perfectly fine.
Exactly. That model implies a strict dualistic separation between the creator and the creation. But a spider doesn't work like a carpenter at all.
No, it doesn't.
A spider doesn't go to the hardware store to buy web material. The spider spins the web out of its own biological substance.
That's a huge distinction.
In philosophical terms, the spider is both the efficient cause, which is the intelligence that designs the web, and the material cause, which is the actual stuff the web is made of.
So, by using the spider metaphor, the Upanishad is saying the universe isn't a separate thing made by Brahman. It is an emanation of Brahman.
Yes.
The universe is literally made out of the substance of the ultimate reality, which means the world around us, the chair I'm sitting on right now, the microphone I'm speaking into, my own physical body, is Brahman.
It is all Brahman. And this leads right into the second profound metaphor, which addresses exactly what you just said about your own body and your own existence.
Let me read this part. And, if you are listening right now, really try to internalize this visual because it is a momentous declaration.
It's one of those powerful lines in the text.
The text says, just as thousands of sparks fly upward from a blazing fire and are essentially akin to the fire, so do various beings come forth from the imperishable Brahman and unto him again return.
Think about a massive, roaring bonfire. When sparks fly off it, they shoot up into the night sky. And for a brief second, they look like isolated, individual, tiny little things flying through the dark.
They look completely alone.
They seem entirely separate from the fire. But what is the actual chemical reality of a spark?
It's just a tiny piece of fire. It possesses the exact same heat, the exact same light, the exact same fundamental nature as the massive bonfire it came from.
Right. They are not different from the fire in their essence. And Shankaracharya focuses heavily on this to shatter the illusion of our own unworthiness.
Because we feel so unworthy most of the time.
We do. We are conditioned by society to believe we are flawed, distant, separate creations struggling down here to earn the love of some distant god up there. But this text says, no, you are the spark.
You share the exact same imperishable nature as the source.
You are made of the fire.
But I'm going to push back again because this is where the philosophy always hits a massive wall for me personally.
It hits a wall for a lot of people. What's the block?
If I am the spark and everything around me is the fire and it's all this one unified, peaceful, perfect Brahman, why does my life feel so incredibly stressful and fragmented?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, why do I feel like an isolated ego, battling traffic, paying taxes and constantly worrying about my health? If it's all one perfect reality, where does all this pain come from?
That is the defining question of Advaita Vedanta. If reality is non-dual and perfect, how do we account for the very real, visceral experience of multiplicity and suffering?
Right, because the suffering feels very real.
It does. And to solve this, Shankaracharya utilizes what is arguably his most famous analogy in all of his commentaries. It's the analogy of the snake and the rope.
I love this analogy so much, but let's really break down the cognitive mechanics of it step by step.
Okay, so imagine you are walking down a rural dirt path at twilight. The light is dim, shadows are getting long.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, you look down and you see a coiled shape on the path right in front of you.
Okay, I'm with you.
Based on your past conditioning, your evolutionary biology, your brain instantly recognizes the pattern and screams, "Snake!"
And the physiological response is immediate. Like the amygdala fires, your heart rate spikes, adrenaline just floods your bloodstream, you freeze in terror. You might even, imagine hearing it hiss at you.
Exactly. In that moment, your terror is 100% real.
Mm.
The physiological stress on your body is undeniably real. You are reacting to a genuine threat.
I'd probably start backing away slowly.
Right. But then, a friend walks up from behind you carrying a really bright lantern. The light illuminates the path. And in a fraction of a second, you clearly see that there is no snake.
It's just a rope.
It is just a piece of coiled rope that someone dropped in the dirt.
And what happens to the fear in that moment? It doesn't slowly drain away over an hour. It vanishes instantly.
Instantly.
You don't have to sit there and negotiate with the rope. You don't have to logically convince your brain not to be afraid of the rope. The mere sight of the truth completely obliterates the illusion of the snake.
This is a profound model for how Shankaracharya explains our entire experience of the material world. I mean, did the snake ever actually exist?
No, never.
No. The snake was a superimposition, what he calls adhyasa in Sanskrit. Your mind projected its own fears, conditioning, and ignorance onto a completely neutral object.
So the rope is the reality.
The rope represents Brahman, the undivided, peaceful, eternal reality. It is the only thing that is actually there on the path. But because we are walking in the twilight of spiritual ignorance, our minds project the scary snake onto it.
So the snake is my perception of the world as a fragmented, dangerous place full of separate objects that are constantly competing for survival.
Exactly. Your stress, your feeling of isolation, your anxiety about the future, your fear of death, all of that is the biological and psychological reaction to the snake.
And it feels incredibly real.
It feels like life and death,
Yeah.
but it is fundamentally a perceptual error.
Wow. So what does this all mean for how we actually live? Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, this completely rewrites the goal of spirituality.
It flips it on its head.
Yeah. Because if I am already the spark and the separation is just the illusion of the snake, then I don't need to acquire anything new.
You don't?
I don't need to travel to a cave on a mountaintop to find God. I don't need to earn enough good karma to buy a ticket to heaven. I am already co-eternal with the ultimate reality.
That is the ultimate paradigm shift. The goal of the spiritual path is not attainment. It is recognition.
Just seeing what's already there.
Exactly. You just need someone to bring the lantern so you can see the rope. You need to remove the ignorance, remove the superimposition, and what remains is the truth that was always there from the beginning.
Okay, but how? How do we get the lantern?
That's the practical side.
Because it's one thing to sit here on a deep dive and say, oh, the world is just a rope, don't worry about the snake. But when my boss yells at me, or I get a scary medical diagnosis, or my car breaks down, the snake bites.
The snake feels very real in those moments.
So the fear is totally real. Does the Upanishad give us a practical cognitive tool to actually bridge this gap between theory and reality?
It does. It shifts from this high abstract philosophy to a highly precise meditative technology. And true to form, it uses a brilliant metaphor to explain the mechanics of mental focus. It compares meditation to archery.
Oh, the bow and arrow. Let me grab that quote. The text says, OM is the bow, the arrow is the individual being, and Brahman is the target. And the instruction is, with a tranquil heart, take aim. Lose thyself in him, even as the arrow is lost in the target.
Let's unpack the specific components of this technology. First, the bow. The text explicitly says OM is the bow.
The sound OM.
Yes. In this tradition, the syllable OM is not just a pleasant sound you make in yoga class. It is the acoustic designator of the Supreme.
It has a very specific meaning.
It represents all states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and the silence that follows the chant represents the fourth state, turiya, which is pure awareness.
So chanting or meditating on OM is the mechanism that creates the momentum. It is the tension of the bowstring being pulled back.
Yes, the mental energy and discipline required to repeatedly bring the wandering mind back to OM generates the propulsive force. Now, the arrow is the jiva, the individual ego.
It's the me that feels separate and anxious.
Right, and Brahman is the target.
Think about an Olympic archer stepping up to the shooting line. I always marvel at their state of mind.
It's incredible focus.
When they draw the bow back, absolutely everything else in their reality has to vanish. The crowd noise, the wind, the pressure of winning the gold medal, their own internal doubts. It all has to be completely muted.
The mind has to be perfectly still.
The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's worrying about the future, just goes quiet. They enter a deep flow state where there is absolutely nothing left in their awareness except the tip of the arrow and the exact center of the target.
That singular, unwavering focus is exactly what the text means by, with a tranquil heart, take aim. This is why lower knowledge has to be transcended eventually.
Because it's a distraction.
Exactly. If your mind is cluttered with desires, anxieties, and intellectual debates, if you are still thinking about the Wikipedia article on swimming while you're holding the bow, your arrow is going to veer completely off course.
You'll miss the target.
A tranquil heart means the emotional turbulence has been stilled. All the snakes have been cleared from the mind's eye.
And then the text says something really crucial about the release of the arrow. It says, lose thyself in him, even as the arrow is lost in the target.
Shankaracharya pays very close attention to this specific phrasing. Think about the physics of an arrow hitting a solid wooden target.
Okay, picturing it.
The arrow doesn't just tap the target and bounce off. It doesn't have a temporary interaction with the wood.
No, it pierces the wood. It violently embeds itself into the fibers of the target.
It embeds itself so deeply that the arrow and the target essentially become a single object. You can't easily pull them apart.
They are unified.
Shankaracharya argues that this meditation is not about having a cool, temporary psychedelic experience, or just a fleeting moment of peace during a 30-minute sit, only to go back to being a stressed-out ego the rest of the day.
It's not a temporary high.
No, it is about a permanent psychological shift. The arrow of your individual identity embeds itself so completely into the reality of Brahman that the illusion of separation is permanently shattered. You lose yourself to truly find yourself.
That is such a staggering visual. But the Upanishad doesn't stop there.
It keeps going.
Yeah. We are about to look at what might be the most famous, most analyzed visual metaphor in the entire text. And if you are listening to this right now and you've ever felt torn in two different directions by your own mind.
Which we all have.
Right. Like part of you wanting to indulge in a bad habit and another part of you just watching yourself do it with total regret. This metaphor is the absolute key to understanding human psychology.
It is the metaphor of the two birds on the selfsame tree.
Let me grab the exact detail from the source so we get it right. It says, like two birds of golden plumage, inseparable companions, the individual self and the immortal self are perched on the branches of the selfsame tree. The former tastes of the sweet and bitter fruits of the tree. The latter, tasting of neither, calmly observes.
It is a hauntingly beautiful poetic image. Let's really decode the symbolism here.
What's the tree?
The tree here represents the physical body and, by extension, the entire arena of the cosmos. It is the realm of experience.
And perched on the branches of this tree are these two birds. Let's look at the first bird. The first bird is actively hopping around the branches, eating the fruit.
Right.
This represents the jiva, right?
Mhm.
The individual egoic self.
Yeah.
The me that wakes up every day, tries to build a career, tries to find love, and deals with traffic.
And notice the specific detail the text provides about the fruit the bird is eating. It is both sweet and bitter.
It's not all good.
No. The eating bird is trapped in the dualistic cycle of experience. When it finds a sweet fruit, it eats it and experiences joy, pleasure, pride, and satisfaction.
It feels great.
But inevitably, it bites into a bitter fruit and experiences sadness, loss, frustration, and pain.
So its entire psychological state is totally hostage to external circumstances.
Completely hostage.
If the fruit is good, I am good. If the fruit is bad, I am bad. It's a terrifying way to live, being tossed back and forth between elation and despair all day long.
And yet, it is the default state of human existence for almost everyone. But right there, on the exact same branch, is the second bird.
This represents the paramat man, right? The supreme self, or the pure witness consciousness. And this bird is not eating anything at all. It is completely still.
It experiences everything the first bird does, because they share the exact same sensory apparatus, the exact same tree.
Right, they're in the same body.
But it remains entirely unconditioned by the experience. It doesn't get a dopamine spike from the sweet fruit, and it doesn't suffer despair from the bitter fruit. It just watches. It is the silent witness to the drama of life.
So what does this all mean on a practical level? How do I actually locate these two birds in my head right now?
That's the challenge.
Let me offer an analogy that might help. Think about the experience of watching an intensely scary, gripping movie in a theater. Let's say it's a terrifying psychological thriller.
Okay, I can definitely picture that.
The eating bird is the part of your brain that is completely hijacked by the plot. It's the part of you gripping the armrest, your heart is pounding, your palms are sweating, and you literally jump out of your seat when the monster appears on screen.
Your body is reacting as if it's real.
Your nervous system believes the movie is real. You are eating the bitter fruit of fear. You are fully identified with the drama happening on the screen.
You have completely forgotten you are in a theater.
Exactly. But the watching bird is the part of your consciousness that, even during the most terrifying jump scare, sits quietly in the back of your mind and knows, I am sitting in a plush chair in a climate-controlled room. I paid $15 for this. This is just light being projected onto a screen. I am totally, perfectly safe.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. The witness consciousness is always present, even when the ego is having an absolute meltdown over the movie.
It's always there in the background.
And Shankaracharya delves deeply into the specific Sanskrit vocabulary used in this verse to make a profound point about the relationship between these two aspects of our mind.
Let's break those down.
He highlights 3 words used to describe the birds: Suparna, Sayuja, and Sakaya.
The nuance of these ancient words is always incredible to me. What do they mean?
Well, Suparna means they are intimately related. They're not strangers who just happen to land in the same tree by accident.
They belong together.
Sayuja means they are in a state of perpetual, continuous union. They are never physically or spiritually separated. Where the eating bird goes, the watching bird is already there.
You can't escape the watcher.
And Sakaya is perhaps the most important one. It means they possess the same name, or more accurately, the exact same fundamental essence. They are both birds of golden plumage.
They are made of the exact same stuff, just like the sparks in the bonfire. The individual ego and the supreme self are not 2 different species of bird.
Right. They are identical in essence. And this is the tragedy of the human condition. The eating bird is so incredibly obsessed with the flavor of the fruit, so hypnotized by the movie on the screen, that it completely forgets the other bird is even there.
It thinks it's all alone.
It feels totally isolated, overwhelmed, and alone in a hostile universe of bitter fruits.
So how does liberation happen in this metaphor? Does the eating bird have to systematically destroy itself? Because, a lot of people hear terms like ego death, and they get terrified.
They do. It sounds violent.
They think spirituality means becoming this blank slate with no personality.
No, liberation is not about the eating bird committing suicide. It is not about destroying the mind or erasing your personality.
What is it then?
According to Shankaracharya, liberation happens in a single radical moment of recognition. It happens when the eating bird, utterly exhausted by the endless roller coaster of sweet and bitter fruits, simply pauses.
It just stops eating for a second.
Yes, it stops looking outward at the branches for the next fruit, and it looks inward. It looks at the watching bird.
And what does it see?
It sees the golden plumage. It sees the shared essence. In that flash of insight, the eating bird realizes, wait, that silent, peaceful watcher is me. I am not the frantic eater of the fruit. I am the silent witness.
Wow. The illusion of being 2 separate entities just collapses.
Exactly. The snake is seen as the rope. The watcher and the watched merge into one unified consciousness.
This brings us to the ultimate result of recognizing this higher knowledge. Like, what happens to the individual when this realization takes place?
The Upanishad gives us one final, soaring metaphor to describe the state of liberation, and it beautifully addresses that common fear of losing ourselves.
The text states, as rivers flow into the sea, and in so doing lose name and form, even so the wise man, freed from name and form, attains the supreme being.
And it concludes with the definitive, ultimate, non-dual statement.
Yeah. He who knows Brahman becomes Brahman.
As rivers flow into the sea. Let's look at the mechanics of a river for a second.
Okay.
A river has a very specific identity. We call it the Amazon, the Nile, or the Mississippi. It has a specific form, a specific history, a specific path it carves through the land.
Right, it's very distinct.
But the moment it reaches the delta and finally hits the ocean.
Where does the Mississippi River end and the Gulf of Mexico begin? You literally cannot draw a physical line in the water.
The fresh water mixes with the salt water.
Hmm.
The boundaries dissolve. The water is just water. The specific name and form of the river dissolve completely into the vastness of the sea.
And this is so crucial to understand because losing name and form sounds like annihilation to the ego.
It sounds like death.
It does. But the river isn't destroyed when it meets the ocean. Not a single drop of water ceases to exist. It is actually an expansion.
A massive
The
expansion.
river realizes it was always water, and now it has expanded into the infinite. It has become the ocean. When the text says, He who knows Brahman becomes Brahman. It means the artificial boundary of the ego is removed, and you realize you were always the whole.
And Shankaracharya is fiercely adamant about the timing of this realization. This liberation, which is called Jivanmukti, is not a post-mortem reward.
It doesn't happen after you die.
No, it does not happen after you die. It is not the heaven karma we discussed in the beginning. It is achieved right here, right now, in this very life, while the body is still breathing and the tree is still standing.
You wake up from the scary movie while the film is still running.
Exactly.
You are still sitting in the theater, the lights are still off, the images are still flashing on the screen, but you are no longer terrified because you know you are the watcher.
Yes. The sage transcends sorrow and overcomes evil by simply waking up from the illusion. And because the fundamental desire for the fruits of the world is entirely uprooted, the compulsion to act out of ego just vanishes.
And a wheel of samsara stops spinning for them.
Entirely.
This raises a really important question, though, and it's probably the most common pushback to non-dual philosophy that I hear.
Let's hear it.
If I am liberated while still alive, if I realize I am the silent watching bird and not the eating bird, if my ego dissolves like a river into the sea, how do I actually function in the world?
It's a very practical concern.
Right. Does the liberated sage just become a vegetable? If they don't desire any fruits, why would they ever get out of bed in the morning? Why would they go to work or help an old lady cross the street? If you don't care about getting good karma anymore?
It is a vital question. And according to Shankaracharya's framework, the liberated sage does not become inactive or lazy. In fact, their action becomes spontaneous, natural, and utterly perfect.
What do you mean by spontaneous?
Think about how exhausting moral calculations are for the average person. Most of us do good things because we are following a mental rule book.
Yeah, I should help this person because society expects it.
Or, I shouldn't lie because I will get bad karma and be punished. Our morality is heavy, it's anxious, and it's highly calculated. The liberated sage is entirely free from those mental compulsions of should and should not.
So they just do whatever they want.
They do, but because they have realized that everything is Brahman, that there is no actual separation between themselves and others, what they want is naturally aligned with the absolute good of all.
It's intuitive.
It's like a master jazz musician who has internalized music theory so completely that they no longer have to think about the scales while they play.
They just improvise perfectly.
Right. They play the right notes spontaneously, without calculation.
That's a great analogy. It reminds me of the human body. Like if my left hand touches a hot stove and gets burned, my right hand immediately reaches over to pull it away and soothe the burn.
It doesn't hesitate.
No. My right hand doesn't stop and calculate, should I help the left hand? Will I get good karma if I do? Is it my moral duty as a right hand?
That would be absurd.
It just acts instantly because the right hand and the left hand inherently know they are part of the exact same body.
Precisely. When the illusion of separation is gone, helping another person is as natural as your right hand helping your left.
Because they are you.
Yes. You don't ask for a reward. You don't tally up merit in a karmic bank account. You act with immense compassion simply because it is your rediscovered divine nature. The goodness just flows completely uncalculated like a river. It is the ultimate freedom.
Man, what an incredible paradigm-shifting journey this text takes us on.
It covers so much ground.
We started with a wealthy householder realizing that all his worldly success and book smarts were leaving him totally empty. And we've ended up merging rivers into oceans and dissolving the illusion of the terrified ego.
It is a complete deconstruction of how we normally operate in the world.
It really is. So, to summarize the vast territory we've covered today, the Mundaka Upanishad, brilliantly illuminated by Shankaracharya's commentary, reveals that hoarding facts, memorizing texts, and chasing temporary rewards on the karmic treadmill, all that Apara Vidya, or lower knowledge, ultimately keeps us trapped.
It keeps us jumping at imaginary snakes in the dark.
Exactly, because it relies entirely on the illusion of separation.
Right.
True freedom, the Paravidya, is a profound inward shift. It is the psychological pivot from being the frantic, anxious bird constantly eating the bitter and sweet fruits of daily life to recognizing ourselves as the golden bird, the pure witness, observing the drama in profound, undisturbed peace.
And we really want to leave you with the core takeaway of this ancient text, delivered verbatim. Rituals and learning give temporary fruits, but knowledge of Brahman leads to immortality.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a lingering, provocative thought to mull over.
It's something you can practice today.
Yeah, because it is very easy to feel the intellectual truth of this while you're just sitting here listening to a discussion, but the real challenge is bringing it into the actual trenches of daily life.
Where the snakes are.
Exactly. So as you go about your day-to-day, as you face stress at work, as you read difficult emails, as you navigate frustrating conversations with your family, or even as you experience moments of great joy and success, try to catch yourself eating the bitter and sweet fruits.
Notice when you're caught in the movie.
When you feel that familiar tightness in your chest or that rush of egoic pride, see if you can pause for just 1 second. Can you zoom out just an inch and locate that silent golden bird inside you that is just calmly watching the whole movie happen?
It is always there. The plumage is always golden. You just have to remember to look inward.
Thank you so much for exploring this profound text with us today. Please remember to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd really love to know if the metaphor of the two birds resonated with your own experience.
It's always great to read the comments.
And be sure to tune in for our upcoming deep dives, where we will be exploring other principal Upanishads with Shankaracharya's commentary right here on Simplified Awakening. Until next time, keep looking for the Watcher.